Hi, my name is Juan, and welcome to The Couch, a podcast where real therapists talk about real things. Please remember that we are therapists, but we are not your therapists, and this podcast is intended for educational purposes only. Welcome, my friends, listeners. Today I think will be a really helpful episode. We're going to look at what is anxiety, how to manage it in the everyday life. And I think it's a neat topic because to some degree, right, we all experience anxiety. I mean, we've seen the movie, or maybe you haven't, but if you haven't, go check it on YouTube. Just a couple of clips, Inside Out. You got anxiety in there. You got anger, disgust, joy, sadness, right? These feelings that we experience, they're normal, right? They're a part of us. And then comes in that large question of, well, if they're normal, why can't I sleep? Why do I have this desire to eat all the time to just soothe my anxiety? We're going to dive into all of those areas. My goal is that as you go through this episode, you get an understanding of what anxiety is. We come up with some ideas of how to begin to manage it. You can implement them. You can take them right to your counselor and then continue growth in that conversation. Here's what I want you to look at. Have you ever felt your heart racing? Maybe your thoughts just running and running and running, simply not stopping. And you try to do certain things in life, chores, tasks, but it feels maybe impossible to do them. All of that is an accumulation of anxiety. The heart racing, that's a symptom. The thoughts running and running and racing, that's a symptom of anxiety. Feeling that you've got things in front of you to do and you know you got to do them, yet if something inside just feels impossible, that's a companion of anxiety. As I mentioned before, in today's episode, we're going to break down some practical ways, some realistic ways to navigate, address anxiety so that you have a toolkit of grounding techniques. You can make some adjustments in life, hopefully reframe some thoughts, and keep that needle moving forward. So looking at what is anxiety, I find that, as I mentioned earlier, it's helpful to know it's a normal human emotion, right? We go a little bit further. Well, if it's a normal human emotion, what exactly is it? Well, it's your body's alert system, right? You think about it as like inside your body, you go in there and you find this secret layer and it says alert system, right? And then you open the door and inside you got all these neat things of what it's supposed to do, right? Like the functioning of the space. And in there's items like helping you notice danger, helping you stay focused, helping you meet deadlines. Hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea there. Now the challenge comes in when this normal human emotion, right, your body's alert system, when it becomes unregulated, starts to heighten. And realistically, most things when they're unregulated, it means that it's going to be problematic to some degree. I want you to think about that in a practical way. Imagine if your sleep becomes unregulated. Well, shit, that's not going to be good. Imagine if you've got a leak in the house and it becomes unregulated and that leak just goes on and on and on. That ain't going to be good. Mold's going to start building up over time. Imagine if over time, you're 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late to work. At some point, it's going to be problematic. So challenges of anxiety take place when anxiety becomes persistent, overwhelming. It starts to really create this barrier and interference with your day-to-day life. With the clients that I sit with, sometimes the symptoms that we see and physically can even experience racing heart. So you put your hand on your chest and you may even feel that acceleration, shortness of breath, or to some degree, just some kind of irregular breathing. I've met individuals that will get really anxious in certain situations and they get like a dry mouth, or they notice they stop breathing. I've had individuals share muscle tension or muscle changes where they tell me, I feel like I got butterflies in my stomach. This was odd feeling. And at times that could be connected to the anxiety, that anxiousness, overthinking. You feel irritable. It's hard to focus. It's hard to concentrate. Your sleep's gone to shit. You try to sleep, you can't because your thoughts are racing as if they're trying to win a race. Trying to take out Usain Bolt over there. And you're like, slow down. Or you go to sleep, all good, but then you wake up. Wake up in the middle of the night. Wake up an hour later. Wake up at 3 a.m. You're like, what am I doing awake? I need to go to sleep. If we go back and we think about what is anxiety, right? We mentioned that anxiety is a normal human function. Anxiety is your body's alert system. So there's clues in there. There's clues that help us to begin to learn how to approach anxiety. Because if it's an alert system, if it's your body's way to say, hey, something's going on, so something needs to be regulated. What we want to do is we want to start to notice. We want to start to observe our environment, the people that we interact with, the foods that we eat, the amount of exercise that we do, our routines, our habits. All of those are items that we can start to evaluate and notice so that we can begin the work. What I'd like for you to do in this moment is I'd like you to take a second. Take a second to think about the last time that you felt worried, anxious. Where were you, my friend? What were you doing? How did your body react? Hopefully some reminders come in there. If you need to jot that down so you can go back to it. As you keep diving into the space of anxiety, right? We talked about to a degree. Yes, we can go much more into the detail of what it is, but we got a nice picture of it, something to work with. And that's all we need. We just need something to work with versus being out there in the blind. Now, let's look at triggers. Right? That's the next step. Now, anxiety typically shows up, not always, but at times in a predictable manner. There's certain triggers. It could be you got a 15-year-old that gets anxious because they're about to have a test. And maybe there's something in there. It could be work stress, social situations, money, financial pressures, big life changes. Maybe you're moving and you're anxious about it. Maybe there's a divorce that took place and you're anxious to talk to the kids about that separation. And it goes on and on and on what these triggers can be. And within those loud triggers, there's some that are a little more quiet. It could be daily things like how much coffee are you intaking, or lack of sleep. Or the issue there. It could be your cell phone. Yes. How much TV you're watching, but not just exactly the phone itself or how much TV, what you are taking in. I sat down with someone not too long ago and they shared this anxiety they were going through, and we talked about what they were taking in. They told me they spent a lot of time on their phone, and I said, doing what, reading what? So they mentioned they often read articles. We looked at the articles, and we both found that the majority, about 90% of the articles they were reading had some sort of heightened emotion to them, right? Criminal activity, challenges in life, all important items to review. But we want to take that step back and look at what is the impact. What's the impact of taking that amount of information in that holds those type of feelings? Let's go one more time now. Right? Every so often in this episode, I want to pause for a moment, look at what we can do. That same paper that you wrote down earlier, that you wrote on earlier, I want you to use that and jot down big words, my triggers. And then just start putting down triggers from places, people, body reactions, sleep, patterns. From here, we've got an idea of, okay, my body's alert system, that's my anxiety. I got symptoms, maybe some restlessness, maybe muscle tension, headache, shoulder pain. Maybe I'm overthinking, maybe I'm on edge and irritable. And then I have an idea of here's the triggers, here's the things that are leading up to it. Got some patterns going on. I notice that when I run late to work, I get anxious. I notice that when I keep putting this thing off and I'm procrastinating and I'm avoiding, that only heightens my anxiety over time. I feel good avoiding it because I don't have to deal with it. But then an hour later, I'm like, shit, I still got to deal with that. And now my anxiety was at a 2, is at a 3. And each day it goes up higher and higher until I address it. So I am uncovering these patterns. We go into now the work. Something to notice about anxiety is anxiety has a really integral relationship with the body. And typically most individuals, when they experience anxiety, there's some sort of physical symptomology, physiological symptom. It could be sweaty hands, the hands tremble, fidgety behavior, you're moving in your chair, the head starts to hurt, almost like a migraine. Right behind the neck, there's a pressure, a tension. Right around the jaw, it feels tight. And the symptoms go on and on and on. You may tell your dentist, or your dentist tells you, it looks like you're grinding your teeth. And that could be a symptom of stress, and that could be further connected to anxiety, right? So it's all these clues and patterns. And I bring this to your attention, this physical aspect, because that's our next step. We look at what can we do on a physical level to soothe, to begin to address the anxiety. And these are areas, of course, you can work further with your counselor on. There's many techniques. There's the classic grounding technique of the 5 senses. If you're not familiar with it, you got your senses, right? What you see, what you touch, what you hear, what you smell, and then what you taste. And you start with a count of 5. So you would go 5 things that I see, and you call them out. 4 things that I can touch, and then you call them out. 3 things that I can hear, and then you call them out. 2 things that I can smell, call those out, and then 1 thing that I can taste. And as you do that, what happens is, it's as if you're on a boat. You're tossing this really heavy anchor down that just stops motion. It allows you to be here and now in the present moment. It helps your mind slow down. It moves it from that fast track system of overthinking and into those 5 senses. A small yet mighty exercise. I'd like for you to maybe, as you're here with me, pause the episode, try the exercise, see what happened. From there, what we want to look at is life, right? We talked about a grounding exercise. Now we go a little bit further. Navigating anxiety, it must include lifestyle and routine adjustments, right? Because we know, as mentioned in the movie Inside Out, these are emotions. They are there to stay. Hello sadness, hello joy, hello frustration, hello agitation, hello anxiety, right? They are there. So we got to figure out a way to work together, to live together. And that's where we toss in this nice seed that we lay into the earth. And the work that you have is to plant it, to water it, and to make sure it stays healthy. So what you can do is you could look at sleep. And sleep is not so much as getting in that healthy range of 7 to 9 hours. Sleep is consistency. If you go to bed at 11 o'clock, the next day go to bed at 11, the next day go to bed at 11. Throwing it off one day at 11, one day at 2 in the morning, that can disrupt our emotions, right? They're the emotions like in the Inside Out movie. They're up there. They're in the headquarters. But if we, down below, start to create disruption, that can hurt the process. And I'm sure to some degree, those listening, you've probably had a moment, I know I've had, where maybe you pull like an all-nighter. I did a couple of those in college, studying for that terrible test that I did not do well in. And I did an all-nighter, which was, not good also because I didn't sleep well. Not sure how in my mind I thought it would be a good idea to do an all-nighter, study all night, and then show up to this test, right? It makes no sense. Yet, I did it. So if you've had a moment like that where you didn't sleep well, you likely wake up and you feel what? Irritable, easily annoyed, right? Remember, those are symptoms that can correlate to the anxiety. So what I'm bringing up here is there is a relationship. Exercise. There's plenty of stuff out there that goes into the importance of exercise, and how even taking certain medications for mental health, there's research that aligns it with exercise and can find a relationship between them, as far as, hey, get out there, do some walking, do a little bit of yoga, find a friend, get on a kayak, go in the mountains, go to the beach, walk around, look for seashells. Right? Exercise improves mood. If you get a chance, go check out the Santos Counseling website. There's a blog. You can go to the website, hit the search bar at the right corner, and look up dopamine. And if you type in dopamine or type in feel-good hormones, you'll see an article that goes into our feel-good hormones and the benefit of them and what we can do naturally to bring them out. And it does relate entirely to this conversation of anxiety. Nutrition. Look at sugar, look at alcohol, look at caffeine. Often those have a relationship with anxiety. With nutrition, speak with a nutritionist. Connect with a professional there that can go a bit more over that with you. Overall, we just want to be aware of, if I have this much caffeine, what's happening inside. And if I can know the answer, it's a step closer to managing my anxiety. Mindfulness is a powerful technique. I love using it in my sessions. It's something that we, as a collective at Santos Counseling, work with each other as clinicians to look at different mindful techniques. Everything from the old school journal to a tracking method that you're tracking your mood, your anxiety, your worry, your triggers. It goes a long way to help with that management. From here, we look at our thoughts. Our thoughts have so much to do with anxiety. I tell my kids every so often, I say, what's the loudest voice in the world? And I tell them that because, the loudest voice in the world is yours. And the other day, my daughter had a sports event, and she was really down. She was like, just frustrated. We get frustrated. So then she went through her frustration. I listened. And then I go, try to just be there in that space where and go, man, I know that sucks. I'm sorry that happened. And I know what you're feeling. Doesn't look like it's too good, does it? And then she's like, no, I don't like it. And I go, I know. And then we let some time kind of go, a little more steam. And then it shifted over where she transitioned into some negative talk. And if you're not familiar with negative talk, an example of that would be, I'm not good. I suck at this. Right? So it's where you start that self-defeat talks, criticism. And it comes in different flavors. So there I looked at her and I said, hey, look at me for a moment. So then we locked eyes and I said, what's the loudest voice in the room? And she's a little bit older, so I've been sharing that with her since she was yay high. From that point, we continued and locked eyes there. And it took a little bit, but I think she picked up on it. Because she looked at me and said, okay, mine. And I bring this to your attention because it's important for you to know your anxiety. Know how that voice comes out. Does it come out in a way that's bringing you down? That's hurting you? And then if it is, there's many powerful techniques. One is you write it down and you ask yourself, is it rational or irrational? Circle the one. Likely you're going to find that it's irrational. Sometimes we just got to step out. We got to step out of our own space to be able to fully think through things. So another example with reframing thoughts, which is what we're looking at here, which is a really powerful technique of addressing anxiety. And reframing thoughts is maybe exactly what you're thinking. You've got this anxious thought, and it comes from an automatic negative space. You're noticing it, of course, and then you're looking at trying to change its routine, its pattern. So an example could be, I'll fail this task or this project or this thing. And then you reframe it. I've prepared. I can handle this. I got this, step by step. Right? And doing that supports you with looking at that different way to address it. It helps to also reduce the intensity of those anxious thoughts, because hey, they get intense, don't they? And when they're intense and you're locked in there, it's like you in a ring with Mike Tyson. And here's what I'm saying when we look at this technique of reframing. I'm saying go sit in your corner for a minute, take a break, and during that break, reframe. It's a little bit easier when you step away than when you're in it trying to deal with it. All right, so we covered, I think, a good amount of areas here when it comes to anxiety. We went through what is anxiety, did a bit of that sensory exercise, talked about which connected to grounding. We looked at the triggers, we looked at reframing, the importance of lifestyle and routine adjustment. Now the next step, my friend, is up to you. Pick one item that you found helpful in here and plug it into your beautiful life. I appreciate you spending time with me. If you haven't done so, leave a review. Tell me what you're enjoying about the podcast. Share it with a friend. Bring people into your mental health space. I mean that. When you bring people in, especially men, if you're a guy listening out there, we as men, sometimes we struggle. And often our struggle comes in because we try to do too many things alone. I learn from my wife every day, seeing her ability to jump in with her friend circles of friends, friend circles, whichever way sounds better, take it. Bring people in, even if it's for this project on this podcast. Hey, listen to this, and then something to talk about. All right.